Less than 24 hours ago, Scott Morrison, known as a Pentecostal Christian, congratulated Anthony Albanese on winning the 2022 federal election. But neither had much to celebrate because they, like the church, were shown the postmodern face of the electorate. The Teal Band, or Greens and especially independent candidates, clearly showed that the postmodern electorate had lost faith in the formal and institutional. For Christians going into politics in Australia, this is a wake-up call to know their electorate and not to make assumptions about the Christian voter in particular, but also to stick to the God-given mandates given in Genesis, which tackle most of the global issues today. Meet Kate Chaney, independent candidate for Curtin, the faithful and safe Liberal seat in the western suburbs of Perth. She not only had 1 million in donations backing her, showing that she was not the only one disillusioned by the Liberal Party, the party Australian Christians commonly voted for. Her two issues, climate change and corruption, are issues that speak to the heart of postmodern voters who love the truth and authenticity and care for creation. For too long, the big institutions have covered up corruption, and the modern mindset only had prosperity and progress in mind, all at the expense of the planet. In my essay entitled Imago Dei on Social Media, Pathway to Reach the Postmodern Electorate, I address the three issues that affect people who feel called to politics or public office. The first is that in this postmodern world, many young people access social media as their main source of news. Many politicians approach their postmodern voters with a modern mindset, and they try to escape social media. They're trying to meet the audience in a place where they are not accessible. The postmodern audience like a diversity of mediums, but mostly connect to others on social media. The second issue is that the postmodern voter values truth and authenticity and care for creation, but although these things have been mandated by God in Genesis and could potentially address most of the global issues these days, this story is not effectively told on social media. Instead, because of the corruption in the past and lack of trust in the institutional church, the church is not seen as a credible source. Thirdly, I look at the various types of truth and reconciliation commissions as a possible vehicle to tell God's creation ideal story on social media. To develop the discussion, the essay will highlight statistics around social media, the diversity of the population, and the fact that soon most of the electorate will all be from the postmodern era. We look at the Genesis mandate to live a life that cares for creation, other humans, and in relationship with God, but particularly at Christ, the full representation of what it means to be fully human and made in the image of God. Quoting Daniel Migliore, human beings are called to be co-workers with God in the mission of liberation and reconciliation. This essay will highlight involvement in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in terms of people, climate, and God. The discussion will revolve around politicians learning from this example and advocating for transparency, better representation of the witness accounts, and bias control. Sources include Kerr Wilson and the Australian Social Justice Report of 1998. The essay will call on sources like Scory, urging for a return to the interconnectedness shown by Christ himself, with scholars like Thomas and Manda all advocating for the restoration of positive images of God, suggesting that it will lead to hope. They are joined by Stope et al., who proposes that these positive image representations could lead to people finding more meaning of life. The paper by Nick de Blanche calls on politicians to be God's image makers and not image destroyers on social media. The essay also quotes Daniel Migliore saying, "The Christian calling or vocation as the ministry of liberative reconciliation, an antidote for the despair felt by the postmodern society." It emphasizes the Christian vocation to participate in the preparation of all creation for the coming reign of God, marked by God's justice, freedom, and peace. To conclude, Calvin says that even non-believers have a moral code, but unless we know our audience, we won't know how to respond. Ultimately, Christian politicians should not fear the postmodern, but stick to the God-given mandate in Genesis and be the ambassadors that God intended when He made us in His image, even if it hurts to be on social media. Is that not the obvious place for politicians to show young people the authentic, reconciling life of a Christian, bringing true hope for the future?